shop today. I'm here in my grandpa's wood shop. This is my grandpa. Grandpa, why don't you tell him a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Oscar Barble. I've been turning pens for about 30 years now. I've done all sorts of woodworking, from furniture making to cabinet making. And I settled in on pens, and it's given me a lot of pleasure, because the beauty of wood can be brought out in a pen, and it's gorgeous, and you can keep it. It's unique. There will never be another pen exactly like the one you make out of wood because of the wood grain. This process is fairly easy, even for beginners. You do need the proper tools, which would be a lathe, a drill press, a sander, and a bandsaw, basically. And that is about it.
All right, well, let's get into the process.
Here you see the basic materials and kit that you will need. I'm going to be using a blank of macadamia nut for the wood material. This is the kit for the type of pen we're going to make right now, which is it's a basic type. This one happens to be made with puppy dog imprints on it. Yeah, this is the some beeswax you will be using in the process to keep the super glue that I'm going to use from attaching itself to the bushings. That's about it. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark the pen with the pen shaft, and I will be taking it about 1/8 of an inch from the end. We want to leave 1/8 of an inch there, and I will be drawing about 1/8 of an inch approximately from this end, and then I will proceed to cut the pen to length to where it'll meet the shaft. Here you see me cutting the blank to size on the bandsaw. Be very careful not to put your fingers on that, because it'll cut your fingers pretty fast. Great job. Now we'll drill the hole in the blank by using the drill press, and I have used the benefit of having a little vise to hold my blank in place. And this particular drill press, it has a laser in it, which will give me the center of the blank that we're going to be using. The vise will hold it in place, and it is perfectly centered, or close enough for this job. Drilling through the wood, we just drill so much, and then we make sure we clear out what we have already drilled, to make sure that it doesn't pack in there and cause us a problem. We drill a series of ins and outs to make sure that the debris is cleared from the pen line. Now, as sometimes it happens, we have not cleared the bottom of the pen blank, so what I do is loosen this, bring it up a bit, and retighten the vise to get through all the way through the bottom. We next insert the barrel for the pen, which is the brass barrel, into the pen blank, and with glue. We use a special super glue, and we do this in a manner which is called serpentine, which is back and forth across the top of the pen barrel, like a snake. Turn it, Do another application. This is so that we get all glue in all of the, make sure that it's in the blank, in the wood blank, and will hit all surfaces. That should do it. Now we insert the barrel into the blank and turning it all the way in order to make sure that the glue is spread evenly inside the blank. And that sometimes happens. You just got to tap it back in. It'll be fairly quick. Next, in order to make sure it stays, we do accelerator on the super glue so that it won't fall out.
Okay. And what's the accelerator do?
The accelerator quickens the hardening of the glue, so it hardens instantly. That way we won't have any trouble with the pen blank being loose inside, the barrel being loose inside the wood blank.
Awesome.
The next step is to sand the wood blank to the size of the barrel, being very careful not to take too much of the barrel away from the wood, and I will describe that as I do it. Okay, the next thing we do is to make sure that the burr that we got from sanding it is removed. And we do that in a manner of putting this at a 45-degree angle, reaching in through the tube, and barely turning it. You should get a little curl of brass. Not too much, and do not actually scrape it, because that won't do the job right. Again, on the other side, the same way, until you get a little curl. You see that little curl coming off of there? That's exactly what you want. Put the little curl on there and then go the whole width of the tube, and that should do it for you. Now we'll insert the bushings, which we have 3/8-inch bushings here, and I like to put a little beeswax on them because I'm going to finish this pen with super glue. And the super glue has a tendency to lock the bushings in place if you don't put it on. Again, I put a little more of the beeswax on it. Insert the bushing, twist it and hold it tight, and take the excess beeswax off of it. Okay, we're ready to set up our lathe now. Okay, now we're going to put this on the lathe. I'm using a Nova Comet 2 lathe. It's a little pen lathe that I bought. It works really well for this, but you can make these out of with any lathe that you have. A Shopsmith lathe, any of the larger lathes, they'll do it just as well. It's just that I got the smaller one because my shop is kind of small. We've already inserted the bushings, and now we're going to take the bushings with the wood blank and insert it on a pen mandrel. The pen mandrel is very necessary for this operation. Then we insert the lathe until it comes up very tight and tighten it down. We loosen the quill adjustment and tighten it a little tighter, and then we lock it into place. Now we're going to be using a EMT Easy wood turning tool to do the job here. First we're going to have to adjust the tool rest, and I've preset it where it needs to be. Stop it. We're going to have to bring the lathe back this way. Okay. And now we adjust the lathe until we're about quarter inch or so away from the edge of the wood. And we make sure that it's right. Then we lock it into place, and we adjust the height. Now the height we want to adjust to is just so that the center of the lathe comes right to the center of the bushing. Then we lock the tool rest in place. Check it again. That's good. Turn it, so make sure it isn't touching anything. Always start your lathe on the lowest speed possible, just to make sure that everything is okay. So I turn it down to the lowest speed, turn it on, see that everything clears good, then I increase the speed up. This is a fairly small block, so you can turn it up pretty fast. I'd say 2,500 RPM. When you've got it enough and ready to go, you attach and put your tool rest on put the tool on the tool rest and bring it across slowly. Taking very slight cuts. Take small cuts because we don't want the block to split because it takes a big piece out of it. Turn it until it is rounded. Now, if you want to check that it's round without turning the lathe off, all you have to do is put your tool on it. You notice it shatters quite a bit right here, but it's fairly smooth here. So we've almost got it totally rounded. Take a couple more cuts. We now have the lathe block pretty round. Double check it, turn it off. You notice we've got it perfectly round. Stop the video. I'm going to do something. on this because I like it better as far as the pen is concerned. It's easier to hold the pen when you're using it. And we just keep shaping it until we get a cigar-like shape to it. Very slightly tapered, not much. Very slightly. And get the edges, putting no pressure much on the blank itself. Stop and check that. One of the most important things is that you're even with the bushing. You don't have a lip on that. Because if you have a lip, you'll feel it on your pen and it won't really be well. That looks pretty good. Has pretty good markings in it. Now we'll remove the tool rest and put it out of the way. I always like to turn it a little bit so that it's not going to catch my hand. And then it's time to do the sanding. Now what I'm using is Abernet sanding cloth. The reason I use the Abernet is that it's got a netting and it's made to where it's got little holes in it, and so I can just flick it and it keeps the sandpaper from loading up. So I get to use it over and over many times, and it's really good. I'll start out with 120 grit sandpaper, which is the most coarse, and then I'll progressively go down to 400 grit. Sanding lightly, just smoothing out the cuts that the chisel made. And if you notice that I'm moving the sandpaper forward a little bit to keep it from loading up, then I turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. And I think I've sanded it sufficiently, which doesn't take much. I will flick it so that it's got all the sand dust out of it, set it aside, and go to the next one, which is 180 grit. Moving the sandpaper forward with my thumb and my forefinger, and just kind of easing it up on it, like this. Turn it around, get the other side the same way. And I feel that I've done sufficient amount of sanding with that. Flick it again, bring it down, and take the next one, which would be 280 grit. Or 240 grit. Do the same process. I won't have to do as much. It's starting to get very smooth. If you notice, the lathe is on high speed. You can use it on high speed. Don't want to burn your fingers when you're doing it. Make sure you move your fingers. Keep it in place. Again, clean off the sandpaper. The next grit, 320. Of course, we're taking less and less sand dust off of it. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but I definitely am wearing a face mask because the dust can get into your lungs, and some of these woods that we use are very toxic. I don't know of any allergies to any specific wood that I got, but I do not want to fill my lungs up with the dust that comes off of it. So I definitely continue to wear a mask. Okay, 360, we're down to 400. Now the 400 grit, the sandpaper will pretty much polish it up a little bit. Continue to put it on. Continue to sand it lightly. You can press a little harder with this. And finish the whole operation with 600 grit. So then I'm putting a nice, flat, semi-polished surface on the wood. Macadamia nut wood is very hard wood, which is good for pen printing because it will take a nice finish and take a nice, end up with a nice finish on when the sanding is done. Flicking it again to get the dust off the sandpaper. Let's turn it off and take a look at our job. That's very nice, very nice. This should come out good. If you notice, the reason I use Mac nut on this particular puppy track pen is it's got looks like little puppy tracks in the macadamia nut. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's quite attractive for that type of pen. The next operation we do is I add a little bit of thin, very thin super glue to a polishing rag. The way I get these is I take a paper towel and I roll it in a roll and then snip off and get little pads like this out of it. Okay, now it's time to turn the lathe all the way down to slow again. Put a little drop or two and run it back and forth 2 or 3 times very quickly with moderate pressure. Then I give it a little spurts with the hardener. This makes it solid. Next, I want to go to a finishing, Insta-Bond finishing that I get from Craft Supplies. And I found this is the best finishing super glue there is. Again, I put a little drop or two on it. Run it across very quickly, 3 and 4 times very fast, and again spritz with a little bit of hardener. I complete the process or repeat the process about 8 to 10 times. I like a good finish on my pens. Takes a little squirt out of that hardener, activator they call it. You want many thin coats. You do not want to put heavy coats of super glue on there because it'll just, what'll end up happening is it'll be too thick and it'll end up cracking on it. Later on, if you drop your pen, it'll end up cracking. I like to clear my super glue by pushing on it a little bit to make sure that it doesn't clog up. Then I stop it, take a look, see if it's sufficiently dried and hardened up, and it has. Now, I do the sanding one more time. What I do is it looks pretty good as it is. You look at it and you say, hey, that looks like a nice finish on the pen. However, you need to level that, and the way you level it is by using first 400 grit and then 600 grit sandpaper, the Abernet. And you just take enough off of it so that it takes the glaze off. And that'll level, what they call level it, will make all of it the same height. So that you have a very, very shiny and smooth surface. off of that, and I want to hit it one more time, a little bit, with 600 grit. Just to take a little more off to make sure we don't have any dimples in it. Again, as I use the sandpaper, I move it in my finger just so I get a new surface every time. Okay. Let's take a look at that. Brush it off. I see no glaze on there. I see no, oh, wait a minute. There it is. A little on the end. Make sure we get all of that off. We'll take it and put it on one more time. And do a little more with the 600. For some reason it doesn't seem to get on the ends very good. And you gotta do it again. And that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Now, I go back to my pads and I pick a good pad. And then I use Dr. Kirk's Magic Micro, which is marvelous for this. I mean, it's like a miracle. It is really magic. I like using this stuff because I get it from craft supplies. It's the only place I've found it. And this isn't a plug for craft supplies. If you got a good product though, you should tell people about it. And this works very good for me. Now I want to put the speed back up to high again. Just a little smear of the varnish on the product on there. And you press this pretty hard. You want to build up some heat because it's the heat that melts the crystalline pieces in there that do the job for you. Turn it around and take a dry piece, the dry side, and run it across the extra. Start out with the red. Next we go to the medium, which is white. Same process. I usually use the other side of this. Around there, not much. Yeah, barely cut and make sure it gets all over and repeat the process. Again, go back and forth, switching to make sure that you get the heat under it. Pretty hard, get the heat, and then wipe it off with a clean piece of pad. Turn it inside out so I make sure I got it. I'd say it looks pretty good. I'll accept it. Loosen the lathe, put it back, and I like to use a piece of paper toweling so I don't get my greasy fingers on it. I usually take it and pull it off. Taking it off the bushings and from the ends. Again, take the bushing off. So I don't lose my bushings, I take them back with me and put them with this particular kit. Okay, we have instructions that come with every pen kit, and we're going to try to follow these instructions. It says lay the parts according to the diagram, and you can see that's the way they are laid out. And we're going to do the assembly by, first of all, we put in the pen tip coupler into the end of the pen with a recessed part in first. Adjust our pen press. One thing we want to note is always use the shiny part, anything that was shiny metal, against the soft plastic whenever you're pressing your things together. Line it up and push it in tight. Turn it around, make sure that it's good and flat. Then we press in, make sure that this plastic part is in tight, that it's threaded in tight, and it is. Okay. Now we press the click assembly, which is this, into the other end of the blank. Just the pen press again, keeping the shiny side toward the plastic. Next thing we do is screw the click assembly into the opposite end of the barrel. We put the refill in and the spring. Be careful of this spring, because once it's lost, it's lost. It just gets up and go. And we screw in the tip. Hopefully we have a pen. And that's a fine looking pen that if I was to market it, if I was to sell it, I would take no less than $75 to $85 for this pen. It has the little markings on it so that you can see the footprints. It also has the little doggy footprints on the metal itself. And there you have it. It clicks, and it's a very silent click pen, which makes it very nice to have. And I would be proud to carry that, and I would be proud to present it to anyone.
Excellent job. And we have a little girlfriend that's showing us.
In here?
He's learning wood shop too.
Oh, you little shit. You want to get in here. You know the goodies are in here, don't you? People are just so they got it. Do you think we did all right?
Yep. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Make sure I got a copy of that now.
Yeah, I'm going to show you before I put it up.